Hello everyone, I'm Mark Suxford and I want to welcome you all to my new podcast called People Behind Brands, brought to you by Making Websites Better. Throughout the series, I'll be opening up my little black book of contacts where I'll be joined by an inspirational guest from the world of business, getting to the bottom of what made them so successful. In each episode, I'll be touching upon the highs and the lows that every professional has faced along the way. To never miss an episode, subscribe to our exclusive content now and follow us on our social media platforms. People Behind Brands. Life lessons from the world of business. When you go on a lad's holiday with your mates, you might come back with a few embarrassing stories to tell or regret how much you had to drink throughout. But for Josh White and his friends, it was the founding story of their company. After seeing plastic bottles washed up on a beach in Thailand, he and his friends knew that something had to change, and fast. As a result, CanO Water was born and has become the first company to produce water in aluminium cans, meaning their products are 100% recycled. Josh talks to us about co-founding the company through COVID-19, changing our habits, and why he is committed to preventing single-use plastics destroying the environment further. A thought-provoking episode that makes you think that we don't own this planet, the human race are merely the leaseholders. Josh, welcome to the show. Great to have you with us. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm very good, Mark. How are you?
Good, yeah, not too bad, thank you. Where can we find you today?
I am currently sitting in my office, which is in Elstree, North London. Most people don't know where that is, but that's where I am.
Excellent. Sounds good. Okay, so Josh is the co-founder of CanO Water, a pioneering sustainable canned water brand. CanO Water is sourced from a natural spring in the Austrian Alps and is housed in an aluminium can, the most recyclable packaging on the planet. Josh and team have put together a unique brand which is changing the conversation about packaged water and whetting the UK consumers' appetite to move away from single-use plastic. Since launching in 2015, CanO Water has sold over 15 million cans in the UK and Ireland. Josh joins us today to talk about the brand before jumping into challenges he has experienced in his personal life. So first question, Josh, let's start by telling the listeners the story behind CanO Water and how you became involved with the process.
For sure. So it's a weird one. It's a funny one, a weird one. So I went on holiday in 2015 with my two best friends, and plastic pollution wasn't at the top of our agenda. It wasn't something that we had ever sort of seen before. So coming across mountains of plastic bottles on a beach in Thailand was quite a shock to us, especially when seeing brands that we grew up loving. Yeah. And, brands that have been marketed to us for many years as being, friendly, exciting brands. It shocked us that, these brands were popping up, ruining the beaches that we were and other people were going to on their sort of travel destinations. And we really sort of became obsessed with trying to come up with a solution to this. And I think, the main thing for us was, what are the better alternatives? And you're going to hear me use those words quite a lot, because, that was the goal for us, is what are the better alternatives, and are there any better alternatives? And we came back from that holiday, we all had full-time jobs, but in the evenings we'd meet up and do some research. And one of the great things, and where the authenticity in this story really comes from, is, aluminium is infinitely recyclable, which means that you can recycle a can again and again and again, forever and ever. And it is the most recyclable material on the planet. So aluminium cans were, striking to us as being the greatest alternative. And why has no one ever put water in a can? Yeah. And I think that, a lot of people might have come up with the idea before, but there was this fear of, would people like it, and is it a strange sensation? And, we thought, what, we're going to do it. We're going to be the first people in the world to put water in a can. And that was where, the idea of CanO Water came from.
Single-use plastic has been an issue for some time now, but tell us why you're so passionate about doing something to combat it.
I think, as I said at the beginning, we're your everyday consumer, the three of us who sort of started CanO Water. And, we haven't been pushing this message for 20, 30 years, like some people do. And I admire them. But we were your average everyday consumer who, we saw a problem, and we saw plastic polluting beaches, as I said, and polluting different areas. And, through doing the research, we saw more and more and more on this topic that we didn't even know about. And people were talking about it for a long time. So I think once we saw all the facts and the figures and saw how, plastic isn't getting recycled, and, we were being fed, I guess, marketing greenwashing, you may call it. And if people don't know what greenwashing is, it's, it's messaging that is, false around, whether it's, in this instance around recycling. And that's why we're so passionate, because, we saw a problem and there is a better alternative that is more recyclable. So why not go there?
Do you think people relate to you more because you have come from that kind of, kind of ordinary background? You've been on holiday, you've kind of seen for yourself what it's like. So you're not, as you say, you haven't been doing this for like 20, 30 years. This is something you kind of stumbled across on personally. So do you think people, the consumers, relate to you more with that?
100%. I mean, we're in a day and age where, we speak a lot about authenticity, and this whole journey was powered by, passion and authenticity. And I think that, in the early days of CanO Water, when we started selling in places like Selfridges and Whole Foods, the three of us would regularly do demos there and hand out cans to people and talk to people. And I think people really admired that it was, started from authenticity and a real story by people who aren't preachers. We've never been preachers. As I said, we're just, three normal guys who just, had an idea and wanted to create a better alternative. And, myself, I relate to people that are more authentic and who aren't preaching. And when I look at a lot of brands that are trying to change today, there's a lot of sort of there's not a lot of authenticity, because they're not doing it because they care. They're doing it because they're being made to do it. No one made us do this. We did it, out of pure love to try and create a better alternative. So I think that that's where, as we've grown throughout the, when you talk about that 15 million number of how many cans we've sold, which is growing every day, which is, phenomenal and exciting. But I think the reason it's got to that number is genuinely because people love that sort of that founder-led, authentic story that that them and their consumers can relate to. So yeah, definitely, for sure, it's been it's an important part of the process for our consumers, but also for us as individuals.
I think it's an important thing for us to all to consider, and it's something that obviously, we need to start combating if we're not already. But another area that we have been struggling with in the most recent times is COVID-19. For you personally, how much of an impact did it have on you and your family through multiple lockdowns?
Yeah, listen, it's been really difficult, and it was really difficult. From a family perspective, 100% affected, my family, personally, from a work perspective, it was the most difficult, because seeing a business that you've built for, at this time, it was sort of, I think it was like 4.5 years, coming up to 5 years. We put in a lot of groundwork in the beginning, and it wasn't difficult. I think one of the biggest challenges when starting a disruptive brand is trying to get people to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah.
We were the first people in the world to put water in a can. So trying to convince people that they need to change what they're used to throughout their, for a lot of people throughout their whole life is not easy. So in the early days, we would call up people every day and we would tell them about CanO Water, and they would literally laugh down the phone, and they didn't understand why or what it was. Seeing the change in people's behaviors over the years is incredible, because, in year one, where people thought we were mad, to now where people sort of, are starting to fully understand why cans are better. It shows you how quick the shift can be. And a lot of people are seeing, through whether it's David Attenborough or BBC News or Sky News, they're seeing a lot more about plastic pollution. But I think to see your business go from nothing to then something, and then overnight, the majority of places that you're selling at have to close due to the pandemic, and obviously everything just stops, is very difficult. From a personal perspective, building a brand and having an amazing solid team, you instantly think like, where are we heading? Are the team okay? Is everything, are the team's family okay? And it's a constant sort of, I guess, battle just to make sure that everything's fine and that you're going to safely come out of this. And I think that was the main worry. We've got an incredible team over here at CanO Water, and that's the testament of where we are, like, and how we've got to where we are today. But we've really just stuck together, and I don't think that I would have got through it as easy as I did without the rest of the team. So I'm very fortunate that I've got them, and they have also been able to help me with, from a family aspect, because it's a team effort. So yeah, very fortunate in that perspective. And hopefully we're coming out the other end now and can safely say that we're in an even better position than we were before, because of the groundwork that went in throughout COVID.
The aim of this podcast is to delve deeper into the background and personalities of people behind their brands. Other than the pandemic, what have been some of the personal challenges or hardships that have either changed your outlook on life or led you to where you are today?
I think, it's mainly in the early days when it was, just the three of us. I learned a lot. I learned that things aren't easy. Coming into this, I think that we thought, it would be easy. We were very naive. None of us have any sort of drinks backgrounds, but I think that we thought that we could convince people quite quick. But people are used to, what they're used to, and I think that, one of the main challenges has always been to educate and to normalize drinking water out of cans, which as I said to you before, it's phenomenal and incredible to see, at a festival or an event, or, people walking around drinking CanO Water. Because back in 2016, when we launched, you wouldn't, you would see maybe a friend or family sort of walk around with it because, they know about it, but it was quite strange to people. So I think one of our biggest challenges was always to try and cross that boundary, that barrier. And I think that that's something that, we work very hard every day to do. And it still is an incredible feeling when I'm, in London for a meeting, or I'm at an event and I see someone walking around with a CanO Water, because that is a challenge. And I think that it's a challenge for not just CanO Water, for any brand that is trying to, break the mold or trying to do something different, to get consumers away from what they're used to something new. I admire anyone that, that can do it. And I think that that's so exciting that we've been able to do that, with the help of some, incredidible public figures or people around the world that are talking about, plastic pollution.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you're saying in terms of change there. I think the trouble with the human race is that we don't like change, and we're creatures of habit. And if you can break that kind of change and introduce something that's actually worthwhile, not for them, but also kind of the environment, then I think that in itself is an achievement. So yeah,
100%.
really good.
Convenience is enormous.
Yeah.
And, when we were in Thailand and when we came back, we looked at, most options. And I think the main option is, tap water is free, and, tap water's in our homes. A lot of people can't access good tap water.
Yeah.
But through a lot of research, we still see that even the people that drink out of tap water and use like refillable cans or flasks, a lot of these people find themselves forgetting it, and they will go and buy a plastic bottle, and that's habit. And I think that the main objective for CanO Water was to provide an on-the-go alternative that when someone does forget their flask, or when someone doesn't want to drink from a plastic bottle, they've always got that option to choose a more recyclable alternative.
Yeah. So what would you say is the next chapter or the big plans for the future that you want to achieve, both at CanO Water but also personally as well?
Yeah, so we've just announced some great investment from some incredible people, and I think the main thing for us was bring in strategic people and strategic partners into the brand who can really help us grow. And I think the next chapter for us is really to explode what we've already done. We've got so far in such a small amount of time. We're listed in some phenomenal places like your Tesco's, Morrison's, WH Smith's, Spar, Co-op, Waitrose, and you can find us in so many incredible sort of landmarks across the UK. And the main thing for us now, with the investment that we've got, is really take that to the next level and introduce CanO Water to more and more and more people. And I think that with the people that have now come into the business, we've got an incredible platform to do that.
If there was one life lesson you could give to your younger self, or someone listening that can learn from your experiences, what would it be?
I talk about this a lot, and I think one of the main things is there's two things. One is just do it. Is that that very Nike type slogan? But I know a lot of people that come up with amazing ideas but are too afraid to do it. And I think that you've got to get over those hurdles. You really, really do. And we had no experience and no idea of what we were doing. But one day at a time and one step at a time, we crossed hurdles every day. I'm very fortunate with the guys that that I started the business with, Ariel and Perry, because we kept each other excited and engaged, and we'd meet every evening and we would sort of spur each other on, type of thing.
Yeah.
And the second thing, don't let anyone tell you that you can't do it, because in the early days we'd meet with loads of people who told us that it wouldn't be possible to put water in a can, and we'd never get into the likes of Tesco, and the plastic problem isn't that bad. And I think we did listen to a lot of those things, and but I think that we carried on, and we didn't let it affect us. But you could easily just get scared over one comment and just give up. So I think it's don't give up, and don't listen to anyone unless they've got real valid reasons of why you shouldn't start a business.
Yeah, completely agree with that. Josh, thanks for coming on today's episode and sharing your life lessons with us on the podcast. Perhaps you might like to tell the listeners where they can find CanO Water and how they can get involved with your movement.
For sure. So we are listed in most major retailers in the country. You can probably find us in, whether it's your head office, school, university, or, landmarks, as I said, across the UK. If you want to find out more, you can always come over to our Instagram, which is just @CanO Water, or our website, which is www.canowater.com. or just, feel free to email me or reach out to us through the website. And if you have any questions.
Great. Here on the show, please DM us on our social media at Podcast PBB or search People Behind Brands Podcast. We'll try to get you on to share your life lessons. In the meantime, you can find all our episodes wherever you get your podcasts from. My thanks to Josh for today, and we'll see you next time for a brand new guest. So that's it for this episode of People Behind Brands. I'd love to hear from you all, so if you want to get in touch, follow us on our social media platforms. If you like what you heard, please rate and subscribe to our exclusive content now. Join us next time for a brand new guest on the podcast as we explore yet more life lessons from the world of business. We'll see you soon. Ta-da.